Hi everyone, welcome to my review of David Fincher's The Game in 1997. Another Fincher review. Of course I reviewed Seven recently, a couple of weeks ago. And if you want to see, my full thoughts on that film, check out my review. But this one, is the one that I've never seen. And of course I've also seen Fight Club, Social Network and Alien 3. But Alien 3 was well over a decade ago that I saw that. And the other ones I've seen, maybe I think I saw the other ones last year. So yeah, going to be rewatching all them, of course, the ones I've seen as well, and watching the ones I've not seen, Fincher's, and it's kind of like a director series, as I always do, and not necessarily in order, but somewhat of an order. I'll be reviewing these films, chronological. So here we are with The Game, 1997, of course, and it's the third Fincher film, so it's stuck in between Seven and Fight Club. Arguably the two most popular Fincher films. You could say Zodiac as well. It's very, very popular, of course. Just not quite seen. I've never seen it. But yes, The Game is the one that I was looking forward to. Again, and Michael Douglas. I love Michael Douglas. Really do. Also love Kirk Douglas. And Sean Penn is in this film. At times I love Sean Penn. Other times, not so much. But yeah, basically he's in the film. And yeah, it really intrigued me, the idea of it. I kind of, maybe a paragraph or two, kind of looked into what the actual, the main sort of plot is about, and it intrigued me. It's something that is can offer a lot of possibilities, in terms of how to tell the story. Very, very interesting premise, and yeah. This film, it's got quite a strong fan base. It's not too well received with the critics, certainly not at the time, but has got a strong fan base, 7.8 on IMDb, and most people do say it's an underrated Fincher, and a great film usually. So yeah, just before I kind of get into my thoughts, I love David Fincher. He's shaping up. He could be one of my favourite directors, of the century, and already kind of is. It's just not, maybe not quite top five or anything, but he really is a director I love. And if I made a list at the moment of my favourite 50 directors, he'd be on there for sure. I love 3 of his films I've seen before this. So I'm not a someone that doesn't like Fincher films, and a lot of the time he does the dark kind of films masterfully, and the kind of grimy feel without making it an unenjoyable experience, you could kind of say. And it just kind of he does have as well great characters in them films, that I've talked about, and comedy that works amazingly well. This film, it is very popular among a lot of viewers now. For me, and I really wanted to love it. I wanted it to be a kind of a gem that I kind of discovered, and one that's not too talked about, and along with Panic Room. Really, this is the least talked about, you could say, Fincher film, and I wanted it to be that. Unfortunately, not. Now, did I like this film? No, I did not like this film. I actually really disliked it, and that's a shame, a real shame. But it's not me. I'm not a hater on David Fincher, as I say. I really love this director overall. I think he's pretty genius, and it is a shame. But this film for me did not do it, and certainly in the first half an hour, I actually hated it. It picked up a lot, you could say, at times, but overall, it's still going to be a low score, guys. Everyone, from me, and it's not something I wanted to do. I really wanted to give this a like, but I couldn't actually. The basic plot, of course, is basically Michael Douglas' character of Nick Van Orton. He's basically an investment banker, and he's kind of estranged from his brother and stuff, and his ex-wife or something. And basically his brother's played by Sean Penn, Conrad Van Orton, and very early on there's a conversation between them, which I liked, in the diner. And basically Sean Penn gives him this kind of he starts talking about this thing called The Game, and he gives him this kind of voucher, setting that up, and basically it's not all revealed what it is, but Michael Douglas kind of starts looking into it and everything, and then he sees people work and stuff like that who've also experienced The Game, and basically it slowly unravels. and but it's a game that actually kind of gets incorporated into his actual life. So it's basically actually happens, you could say, and basically the rest of the film is loads and loads of different things happening that are very bizarre, and he's getting chased and everything. By this, of course, the CRS. I think it was kind of company, and it's not all it seems. At first he thinks it's be quite innocent, but he's at times running for his life. And he meets this other woman, Christine, played by Deborah Unger, it was, and she's actually, I've seen her in another film, Fear X, which I also hated. But yeah, that's all I've seen her in. She's basically another person that's kind of involved at times with Michael Douglas's character, and she's at times on the run with him. And yeah, they're the main actors in the film. As well, you've got Linda Mance, actually. That's a thing I forgot to mention. Very small role from her. Actually, it wasn't in much, of course. Days of Heaven, the girl in Days of Heaven she plays. One of my all-time favourite films. And it was weird to see her. But yeah, she was in the film. Apart from that, there's not much well-known actors. But it is, of course, Michael Douglas, the protagonist. Now, I will praise the performance. At first, because I suppose it wasn't the first half an hour didn't demand much, but at first, it was fine. But it did pick up, and it was a solid performance overall, and at times really good. I will give it that. The film, Michael Douglas' performance does not really disappoint. It's not his best performance I've seen. It's no falling down, but it does impress. Sean Penn is fine, in the scenes he's in, but nothing too much to comment on there because he's not really in too much. But he does add some liveliness to that scene early on, where the first half now, for me, wow, I was absolutely. This is my honest opinion, everyone. Very, very bored. Was not compelled by anything other than really that scene between the two brothers, because it was it's kind of exploring that, the relationship. But again, mainly the acting. The writing in this film I did not like. I think it was very, very weak for the most part, and just all over the place. Direction, not good for me, and I didn't think I'd be saying that. All over the place, very messy, I thought, for me personally. As well, as I say, the first half an hour, I was just the cinematography wasn't impressive. It was very, very just flat and dull, and just the characters I did not care for. Michael Douglas's character of Nick was not interesting, to begin with at all, and it was just very, very tedious. Just him sort of driving at night time, going and sitting down, in his house, and it was just the dialogue wasn't interesting. I didn't feel much for this character, and the game, it's getting talked about. This game, just in very, very uninteresting ways for me. I just didn't think it was well set up at all. I would have called this actually very bad to begin with. This film did pick up, and overall, it's not a very bad film. It's maybe not quite a bad film, but this first half an hour, I was thinking, if this film is like this for the rest of the film, it's just going to be something I really hate. I just felt everything was lacking. The sound design was pretty basic and off-putting. So Howard Shore done the score to this film, and overall, after watching all the film, it doesn't stand out. That's what I say. And Howard Shore has composed one of my top 5 soundtracks of all time, and great composer overall. But this one is the only one I've heard that doesn't stand out, and just the sound design wasn't great. I just think there was one interesting scene after the first half an hour, that kind of drew me in a bit more, with the TV, when things actually start to happen, you could say, and I'm not impatient, but it really was getting to a point where it was unbearable almost, how boring this film was. I didn't care for anything, the editing I didn't like, didn't connect to, the flow of it, just was not interested. And they kept saying the game, and talking about it, but it just wasn't done in a compelling way for me. But then things start to happen. There was actually some tension brought into the film. Michael Douglas is he's getting chased by different people. The other character of Christine comes into the film, and there's somewhat of an interest, but still I wasn't liking the film. And things just, I suppose, after the first hour of the film, still pretty bad for me, actually. Just lacked everything, as I say, the energy, the kind of compelling characters, really. Everything was just not there, you know, I felt everything lacking. The kind of dark, macabre kind of feel and unsettling, you know, feel that Fincher films have, you know, most of the time, just wasn't really there in the sense that I thought it would be. And as a thriller, it lacked so much tension and drama and just kind of intrigue for me personally, that it was just a shame. I didn't care for it. And after the hour mark, things pick up a little bit more, and the second half is definitely better than the first. You know, I think the acting does get better, more demanding, I suppose, and you know, things. There's just a bit more tension, a bit more of a better flow to the film. The cinematography, actually, in some of the scenes in the second half, is a bit better than that first half of the film. Certainly, the first half an hour, and it does, you know, it kind of shows some humanity in the film as well. But we'll get to the ending very soon, which, wow, the ending. But yeah, basically the second half did have some stuff that I you know, kind of here and there, I kind of, it's not bad. You know, I kind of, that was interesting, or that was pretty decent. But really, the way that the game plays out at times is bizarre, and it just kind of, there's a couple of tonal breaks, I feel, as well, and especially the ending, but we'll get to that. But there's some tonal breaks about the film, and it's just one long slog for me, most of the time, and it is better in the second half, but you know, it's not something I enjoyed really at all. There were some funny moments, but mainly for Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas really does hold this film together in terms of, you know, it doesn't make it a good film for me. It doesn't bump that up, but he stops it from being a disaster. You know, the kind of comedy, the kind of at times enjoyability, a couple of bits here and there, mainly from him. You know, his performance. I don't think the characters were well written, but yeah, his performance. And you know, he's kind of, throughout the second half, he slowly becomes more and more kind of unhinged, you could say, and it was kind of pretty decent the way that was explored. Again, it was a lot to do with the performance, but you know, it was better directed the second half, and at least it was exploring that, you know, some themes with how it kind of made him, you know, slowly going more mad, and yeah, you know, there was some decent chase scenes here and there, and you know, it did pick up. Now the ending, 10-15 minutes to this film, you know, there is some reveals. I'm not going to say what, because of course that'd be a spoiler review. But really, you don't want to know unless you see the film, because for me, now we get into the reveals. I'll just kind of describe my thoughts on what happened in the last, without actually revealing. Now, maybe the worst twist of all time. That's what I'm saying. Now, people say The Village, you know, things like that, you know, that's the worst twist of all time. For me, it's one of the best twists of all time. So there you go. You know, everyone's different. You know, I think The Village is a stunning film. I can't wait to review that. But then you've got this film. Now, this is just my personal thoughts. Of course, if you like the twist, that's great. Of course, if you like the film, which most people do, you know, that's great. For me, the twist is absolutely, I could not believe it. You know, it kind of happens, as I say, 15 minutes before the end credits, and basically, you know, people talk about twists that undo a lot of the film. This is one of the only ones that I actually agree, you know, with how it can undo a lot of the film and just really piss me off. Now, the twist is just bizarre. That would sum it up. It's annoying, you know, just frustrating about how this has panned out, you know, the end of this film. And I just thought, surely not, you know, surely that's not what they're doing here. But it was, and I just thought, wow, surely that can't be how this film ends. That is shocking for me personally. You know, it's just one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life. It's just completely unrealistic, and I don't usually care for realism in cinema too much. But Fincher really establishes, he creates a tone. You know, you could say Fight Club and stuff have got elements of fantasy and stuff and things that aren't. fully realistic, but generally he does have most of the time very very grounded, realistic, gritty kind of tones to his films. This one being one of them. At times the tonal breaks made it a bit unbelievable, but something that is really he really strives for realistic things, and did not for one bit buy into what happened at the end completely. Would that ever happen? And then the reaction to that by Michael Douglas. First of all, it weakened his character massively, and then just again, really, would he be like that reacting to it? And then something's about to happen, and it happens, and I thought, oh, okay, that is really awful, that ending. But they at least. I'm not going to say, but I'm not going to really describe it. But at least it's going for that tone still. He's keeping up to the tone, and then you've got the double whammy, of the twist. And I just thought, wow, that solidified it as possibly the worst twist / way of a film ends of a film ever. And for a film that is actually going for a twist in that sense, and it is, kind of actual, not just a straight to TV film, but really, wow. I was shocked and just completely a laughable ending, and just bizarre ending, a frustrating ending at the same time, a completely unbelievable ending, and I just thought, wow, that is shocking, and that's my personal thoughts. I'm not trying to disrespect anything like that. David Fincher's films. I usually love his films, to be honest, but wow. I just thought that is just the most bizarre thing. And what if he had that direction, or something? Michael Douglas's character of Nick had done that. And there's so many moments throughout the film where he's put in danger, he's about to die and everything like that. And it's just without kind of explaining what happens, just say that is really, really, really the most shocking twist I've ever seen for a film. It is. I was lost for words really. And then just a cutaway ending. So overall, this film, I've given my thoughts. Much respect to David Fincher's films and him. I love David Fincher overall, but this film for me didn't do it. And it's fine, of course. Most people do love the film, but not for me. So overall, it just kind of. Due to some things to merit in the film, and the fact that second half picked up a little bit, there were some filmmaking elements, and mainly Michael Douglas' performance. Of course, you've got to praise that. He was good in the film actually. Sean Penn was decent. Other than that, it was just very, very disappointing. And the first half was really bad actually, not quite awful. So it balances out, to a very nice. A nice solid score of a 40%. Now that's a weak film for me, very weak and nearing into the bad mark. And just for me, what a disappointment. And that's my personal thoughts. Respecting the comments, of course. This is a very loved film, but for me, it just didn't do it. And it was just so many missed opportunities. It just frustrated me a lot. I got very, very bored with what was going on. Wasn't compelling to me, and it didn't have that gradual build really that was in films like Seven by Fincher, and just didn't have the really interesting characters, to be honest. It's mainly just Michael Douglas's performance that elevated that character, and I just really I disliked this film overall, and it just so had so much awful moments, and as a boring thriller for me overall, and it just the game could have been so good, the idea of it, but ultimately it falls very, very short. It's almost a bad film, genuinely bad film, and that's just my thoughts. I'm sure I won't be saying that about any of the other Fincher films really. I think this will be my least favourite, everyone, and it's still not quite a bad film. So maybe, David Fincher won't make a bad film in my eyes, but, because I doubt any of the other ones I'll like less than this. Who knows what I'll think of Panic Room, but I can pretty much safely say I'll prefer the other ones to this, other ones I've not seen. But yeah, The Game for me is a weak film, very weak. Overall, you know, that's 2 stars, you know, if you rounded that. And what a shame, you know, I really wanted to love this film, but ultimately it bored me, it annoyed me, you know, it didn't, you know, connect with it. I didn't connect with it, I didn't get moved really. Um, you know, I had some human moments here and there, human touches. It didn't really make me laugh too much, apart from with Michael Douglas' performance. You know, the way sometimes he is in films, he's just funny. And then the last 10 minutes are absolutely unspeakable. You know, I won't want to speak about that again because that is just something I'll never get my head around personally. For me, yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching my review. Yeah, not a positive one, and shatteringly disappointing. But for me, The Game is very weak, and you know, not a film I like at all. And yeah, that's just it. But I look forward to the rest of Fincher reviews, of course, and probably next will be Fight Club if I can actually get a hold of that. And you know, maybe in I shouldn't say more than 2 weeks from now, I'll be reviewing that. So yeah, David Fincher, great director, but on this occasion, not so much. And yeah, didn't really care for the film. So thanks for watching my review of David Fincher's The Game.